What we do is we'd have to design a study. I mean, if you're talking about power in terms of statistical terms, then that's really going to come down to actual numbers of patients, and that's something that you have to calculate prior to a study. But you know, a PBRN would need to have 15 clinics or clinicians across 4 locations in order to qualify as a PBRN.
Right.
And that really is all it would take, because if those...
Why is that number so important?
That's just the number that's been determined to be represented enough to create research that's going to be of some use, and that's the minimum threshold to be able to register your organisation as a PBRN.
Right. But you could get 15 clinics within quarter of a mile of each other in London. Would that count?
In theory.
As opposed to...
Yes. Yeah. The difficulty then is we can't then start to generalise the results to populations outside of London. So ideally we want clinics to take part in the whole country. Yeah. We just need to choose how we want to measure progress in patients. There's likely to be various different validated measures to be able to track progress, from the perception of how mum thinks they're doing to how the baby, you know, symptoms, monitoring changes in symptoms, and then we can produce evidence and publish that to show efficacy for osteopathic treatment if that's the case. But because it's being conducted in the osteopathic practices the way the osteopaths do it, there's probably more chance of it showing success rather than trying to create an artificially based study in a setting that's not how care is actually being delivered.
When you say showing success, you mean success of the research, not necessarily the success of the treatment, because we can't presuppose that.
No, so you know, we can't conduct research to prove an assumption. We have to just conduct the research and see what results we get. But you know, there's more chance that it's going to show the results that osteopaths will expect if it's measuring the treatment as it's delivered in practice. As soon as you start to try and change that delivery and you just say, look, just do this one technique and we'll see if that one technique works, then you're not actually assessing osteopathic care anymore, because you know there are so many different factors, and you know all these contextual factors of how the care is delivered.
And you're playing up to that misconception that all we do is manipulate a joint, click a joint to make people better.
Yeah, you know, the caregiving begins as soon as the patient arrives, and all these things, particularly in something like colic, where it's very much about the relationship between the parents and the child, not just the actual issues the child has. You know, the contextual factors of clinical practice are going to be hugely important there. So if you try and reduce that to just a technique, it's more likely to not have any impact as we are used to seeing the impact in clinical practice.